Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to have here in our webinar two young leaders who are already changing the world. My name is Kadri. I'm a project lead in Cleantech ForEst, NGO Cleantech for Estonia. And our mission is to accelerate green innovation, mainly in Estonia, but also internationally. And today's webinar is a pre-event for a huge ideation day. And I say huge because we are expecting to have at least 300 participants and engaging 50 mentors on 21st of November. And this is going to be like hackathon ideation day. And it's going to be physically in Tallinn and also online internationally. And today we have here two young leaders. First, we have Jiri Krejci from Paranduskelder, Repair Cellar. And they saw a problem in society, in people's behavior, in their mindset, and they came up with a solution how to change the situation. And Jiri will talk what they are doing and how they are doing it. And I know that they have idea also to make around the globe with their solution. And then we are going to have Kertu Birgit Anton, who is a young climate activist. And she's still a school student, but already speaking up loudly and making an impact. And what exactly is she doing and how we will hear very soon. And during the webinar, be interactive. You can ask questions. You can write in the chat, and you can also raise your hand and use your voice. And if you are new to Zoom, then just a quick comment that you can choose your view. So you can see everybody or you can see only the speaker. And I hope you can find the chat button that you can use very actively. But now I will give the floor to Jiri, if he is ready.
Yes, hello. And that was quite an introduction from Kadri about, it's quite funny to hear about that actually my everyday doings might be really leading to some kind of systemic change. I guess it should be like this, and we definitely we present it this way, and yeah, but it's just like I'm so immersed in it every day, so I just don't really view it that much. I'm just like so that was very how to say cool. Thanks. Anyways, yes, as Kadri mentioned, we from Paranduskelder, which is an NGO based in Tartu, Estonia, and we are mainly, or like this physical space as it on its own, it's basically a maker space or like a community maker / repair space. When usually this is the term I use when describing it in English, and right, the motivation or how we started was coming from this well, frustration, or yes, right, we were sort of bothered by the idea that that most of the everyday objects we are sort of used to use are just not repairable, and that, as you may have experienced yourself, that mostly the things you use and when they are broken, you actually pay more to get them fixed than buying a new one. So this obviously leads to the behavioral pattern that ends up with just people buying new things instead of repairing them, and it's obviously by design, because, well, if things would be repairable, you cannot make so much profit. So sort of in the name of somehow like naively or like seemingly infinite economical growth, things are designed so they wouldn't be repairable, and people are used to with this, and so they wouldn't even expect some things to be fixable. And this conundrum really, well, yeah, we were really pissed about this, and especially because of the notion that it's somehow quite unsolvable as long as we somehow continue in this very economical model which we currently have, which is basically this mass production, mass consumption, which is feed on itself, and it's this kind of like a vicious circle. And the idea to fix things, or like to promote fixing on its own, like we are well aware that this is not gonna, as Kadri said, change the world by fixing, like a laptop, or changing a screen on your phone instead of buying a new iPhone, even though it's so cool. I mean, check the phones out; they're like so sexy. It's just you have to be also like really honest with yourself, right? Like, I mean, consuming is just so good, and that's why it's such a devil to beat. Anyways, like we are well aware that just by fixing the things we won't change much, but it's rather the idea, or that we are already living the ideal state, right? That even though you're gonna have in each, which would be ideal, then each, let's say in the bigger cities, you would have in each neighborhood, you would have such a small repair/maker space where people could just come and fabricate things themselves, or fix them. Then still, like the mass of the things that get thrown away is still so big. So we rather, with everything we do, we sort of want to like demonstrate how it should be done, that things should be designed so they last, and if once they are broken, that they should be easily repairable, or upgradable. And that where comes into play this modularity, but this is more about production. Yeah, and right, and so the broader vision for the NGO, I would say, is to basically build up a culture that people would start to subscribe to this culture, or there's some kind of like a structure of beliefs, which lead to behavior, which somehow, now I start to describe it so in such a complicated way. Anyways, to create a culture around circular economy, that people would subscribe to this idea that the circular economy behavior is the like absolute standard, and it's like a normal thing. That what it means, what I mean by like a circular economy behavior or circular economy culture, is that it's a normal thing, that stuff is designed to be to last, and not quite the opposite, as it is in many cases. When you see in cheaper products, they are actually by design designed so they wouldn't last. And also that a standard would be that things are, for instance, like everyday electronics would be modular, which would come maybe right, they wouldn't be so sexy as the sexiest iPhone 12 or whatever. It would be maybe a bit more bulky, but it's a matter of time to improvement in the design. But having modular electronics would again makes things much different, and this is just about electronics. Like if we speak about fashion and other industries, it's probably fashion is even more crazy than electronics. Anyway, so this would be an absolute standard, and people would be used to with this. But with this comes the systemic change of the economical system, which is quite a job. Anyways, so we want to like contribute to this change, or to this like transition from the current economical model to a new one that would be more circular in this very practical way, and like demonstrating that you can do these things. And we do it very practically in this way, but that we have this kind of workshop that sort of promotes this culture, which I was mentioning, in this very hands-on and like community way, that we build the community around the workshop, people who come there and use the space, and not just for repairing, but also for making their crazy projects and upcycling projects, like where you directly take something which would have otherwise would have been trash, and you turn it into something new and useful. Like there is a dude now making like I think it's his hobby in general, making like these portable speakers out of different kinds of things. So makes a speaker out of a guitar, and you know, or any kinds of like project. So we have this like so this is this very physical sort of level of building up this culture through the workshop, or like the makerspace, and also by organizing repair cafes. This is an event maybe some of you know also from other countries. I imagine it's quite a popular format all around the world, but mostly in Europe, I think, and Northern America. That's originally from Netherlands, and it's this idea where you get people who are handy at fixing things, and you invite them to some kind of public space. It could be a cafe, it could be a library, or a makerspace, and then you invite people from public to bring their broken stuff, and that they wouldn't know how to fix them, or there is actually no one willing to actually fix it as a service, because it's just ridiculous. You know, no one in these days is providing service. Oh yes, I will fix your, you know, whatever, like a hanger, like umbrella, or things like this, or toys. So you invite these two groups, and then you just fix the things during the whole day, and usually have a, that's why it's cafe. You usually have there sort of like a cafe on the side, so there is coffee and tea and cakes. And so it's always also a very social event, and this really again helps to build the community, like physically, to bring and engage more people. And it's what is really cool, that it's a completely, it always brings really different kind of people, like age and the social and cultural background is just like everywhere. So this is really cool. So you've got like guy who, you know, is like what is his, like, so anyways, he's like a very handy, he's like this typical Estonian no, like this kind of like this and we say just dude, no, but he's a bit older. But he also, just by the way, he was working in this like really high tech labs for like 20 years, and he's an engineer, and he like knows like really a lot about high tech stuff. So, and then you get, and then what is really cool, that most of the people who come to join the event is families with kids. So you've got really this perfect mix, where someone who's from the older generation and knows really a lot can show you how to fix things, and that they're fixable, and kids see it, and then they are, we really empower, or like it's designed, the event is designed that the people who bring the broken things would actually fix it themselves, or like partly or mostly, as much as they wish to, or they are able to, or but we really want people to have the experience that you can actually, if you dare a little, then you just open it and put it back together, and it usually works. Actually, it's a kind of joke, but it's like I don't know, maybe 40% of the times with like electronics, it's kind of like this. You just open it and you put it back together, and it somehow works. Yes, and so yes, so there is this direct experience of like, right, things are indeed actually fixable, which is kind of paradox, because the claim I started this talk was actually that people have this notion that things are not fixable, but it's actually not the case always. And the thing is that, for instance, if I get to technical details, like when you have electronics broken, like for instance, like a classical, this like it has become a meme. This like boiling kettle, water kettle, because like almost every repair cafe we have, somebody brings it, and it's usually mechanical. It's not electronical. The thing. So there is like some kind of knobby plastic that somehow is damaged. That's why it doesn't work. Or it's like, or it's soldering, that the wire is just like came off from the basically from the soldering bit. Anyways, so mostly it's actually just behind the, well, the people are just like scared. No, not scared. That's not the right word. They are just, you know, they don't dare to fix it themselves. They just think like, oh, I don't know, you know. But they actually then they fix it themselves, and it really works. So this is about Repair Cafe, and actually this is how we started actually already 3 years ago. We started to organize these events, and then later we started the physical space about a year ago in Aparadi Tehas, which is sort of culture center, culture factory. It's also a thing to do. I think very common, I believe, in all around European cities. Yes, and also another really cool thing about the Repair Cafe is that it's really easy to organize. Actually, you just basically need friend of friends and friend of your maybe parents, or you just need a handful of like somewhat skilled people. They don't actually have to be like some kind of ultimate handymans. They can be just like any general granddad will do almost. That somehow are they still got the mindset that things are fixable, and or I'm able to fix the things myself. And then you just need a public space, which can be, again, it can be school, cafe, or some kind of youth. Actually, youth centers are also quite a cool place to do it. And then you just like really need basic tools like a power drill and glue gun and a soldering machine and a sewing machine, and you can actually fix most of the things. Yes. Anyways, so these two things, like so the workshop and the Repair Cafes are these like physical ways how we build the culture, or how we contribute towards building the culture around circular economy. And then there is also this sort of virtual, I think, level of how we are trying to do this. And this is mainly for now via social media in general, but we have done campaign when the first COVID shutdown came. So we've done like a campaign with other like a repair focused NGOs and companies, basically Restart Project, the Repair Cafe International, which is basically the NGO that started the whole movement, and iFixit, which is really cool company. They're US based, but they've got like firms around Europe as well. And so we basically made this campaign for people to fix at home when they are during the shutdown. And it was like a Facebook campaign, but this actually got us to, it was a really neat way how we got like connected with these other NGOs and companies. And actually there is a really big movement actually around fixing and right to repair, and just generally approaching the manufacturing business to be more circular. And so this was kind of a gateway to this for us, to this kind of virtual level, or this kind of like, I don't know, it's a wrongly used word, but it's kind of transcendental level of creating culture, of creating this culture around the circular economy behavior. And then the other thing, which actually also came together with the corona shutdown, is actually a YouTube channel we started in April or so, where we basically make video in English every week or so, every 10 days now. Yeah, and there are ranging topics from like what actually we've got this like upcycling challenge, which is just fun for us, that we challenge each other to take something that would have otherwise would have been ending up on landfill, and we turn it into something new. But then we've got also, I made like videos about maker movement and about creativity and about just broader topics that somehow link to this transition. And yeah, and then there are like, yeah, you can check it out. It's YouTube at Paranda, youtube.com at Paranda. And also actually for next year, we've got basically a plan for creating like educational materials that would be available like freeware educational in YouTube at Paranda. Thanks. Okay, thanks. Actually, no. I'm sorry. You won't find it this way, because Paranda is some kind of, if I'm not if I'm correct, then Paranda is some kind of Indian Bollywood star. So when you put Paranda, it's gonna pop you up this like zillion views. This is just gonna yeah, just like this. Yes, and for next year we've got this this plan that we will develop materials for schools. Like it would be like a handout for a teacher. That's so it could be like a geez, I don't know how it's in English. All these subjects like social. It could be like it's meant for like a high school, elementary and high school teachers to have like to create this kind of simple handouts for them to have a class or like one hour just basically for about circular economy, and it can be tweakable. It would be an open source, so the teacher can actually tweak it according to their curriculum and how it fits with the specific subject they are actually having with the kids. So it can be like social sciences, what it is, I don't know, ühiskonnaõpetus. I know most of you are Estonians, but it's where you learn about the world and how it works and why it doesn't work. Yes, but it could easily also fit into biology. I mean, if you would speak about, for instance, you know, how the life cycle of plastic, I think it would fit also into a biology class. And then, yeah, yes. So we've got this. Like ground level or this like physical level of building up the culture, and also this kind of like virtual or like transcendental building of the culture. And I guess the end result would be a world where where this is just it's just a normal thing that that things are fixable and modular and recyclable. That would be the last. That would be the last step if some on the end cycle of a thing. That it would be recyclable, and then in the end it would be recycled as well. There is a really cool book on this, like this core principles. It's called Cradle to Cradle. You can check it out. Actually, the guys who developed the concept, I think they had also a TED talk early in 2000, I think 2002 or something like this. Cradle to Cradle, and just the basic ideas are just really. For me, at least, it's really like alpha and omega. It's really where it starts and ends, like how things should be designed. Yes. Yeah, right. I think this is that's about it.
Thank you, Jiri. I have some burning questions, but I will hold myself back and I will leave them till the end. Here is a reaction button that you can all find, and you can put like applause. Yay, thank you, Jiri. And I will like to give the floor Kertu.
Thank you. So yes, I'm Kertu. As Kadri said, I'm a high school student in Estonia, but I'm also, well, considered to be an environmental activist, although personally, for me, the term environmental activism doesn't really make sense, because I think it should be the norm for all of us to cause as little harm as possible to the environment. But that's that. Anyway, so today I think I'd like to share with you my ideas, first off, on how I actually got to being a so-called environmental activist, and what steps I think pretty much everyone can take to try to alleviate some of the environmental crisis that we have in the world. And then, yeah, I'll also tell you about the company, or a little company that I'm in, and also the movement Fridays for Future in Estonia. But I'll just put on the slides, and I hope you can see them in a moment, because I've got some notes on there. So I hope you can see the slides.
Yes, we can.
Great. Yeah, so I'll start off with a quote by Alice Walker, who said that activism is the rent we pay for living on the planet. And I think it sums up quite well the reasons why I'm an environmental activist, that there's just no other way how I could function, really. So before I'd say when I was somewhere in middle school, then I gradually came to these two important realizations. That first off, we as humans are currently living unsustainably, meaning we are using up resources faster than the earth can regenerate them. And we're destroying support systems that are vital for our own well-being, such as biodiversity and fertile soils and clean drinking water and so on. So once we destroy them beyond a certain point, they won't be able to recover. And the second important realization for me was that we really have nowhere else to go. Well, obviously I knew it, but somehow at some point it clicked for me that everything we all do from birth to death, we do it all on this one planet, in this one environment, except for the few people who go to space for a short period of time. Except for them, we all live on this planet. So once we mess up with this environment, there is nowhere else to go. So we're obviously in deep trouble. So that made me, I think once I realized that there was no going back, I just can't forget it, or I can't ignore it, because I know that once we destroy the environment beyond some certain points of no return, we really will suffer. And not to mention all the other species who are already suffering, and some of whom are already going to be extinct, and so on. So yeah, once I realized that, then being an activist feels just the only right way forward. So here I just listed some things that everyone, or mostly everyone, can do in their daily lives just to cause a little less harm to the environment. And I based this list on a study by scientists in Lund University. It was published in 2017. And well, they listed the most impactful choices one can make in their daily lives to cause a little less harm to the environment. And what they realized is that people don't really know what are the most impactful changes. And that's also really clear in studies, for example, conducted in Estonia, that when people are asked about what they do to save the environment, then people mention quite low impact actions, like they sort the trash, or they don't throw trash in the nature. They don't take the trash to the forest, which is, in my opinion, a no-brainer. Like it should be so normal that we don't even mention it, but apparently it's not. And people often say that the actions they personally take don't really change the large picture, but I don't think that's actually right, because societies are made up of individuals, and collective actions are made up of individual actions. So we all have our own part to play. Yes, of course, we can't put all of the responsibility on individual actions. Definitely not. That's not going to take us anywhere. And we've seen that history, from the history of trying to defend the environment. That's not gone well. But we shouldn't ignore the potential that we have in changing our own lives a little bit. So yeah, just going from almost the most impactful things is living car-free, or trying to use your car as little as you can. Personally, I've gone to school this year on bike only, with no exceptions, and it's been very enjoyable. So, and it's actually, it can be done in Estonia. The climate is not that bad in that respect, definitely. And then buying renewable energy is definitely one very impactful choice. Then trying to avoid flying, because flying is an incredibly carbon intensive way of moving around. So trying to just minimize the need of traveling in general, and also trying to, when we then need to travel, trying to find other alternatives. Those definitely impact the environment a lot. So the two pictures that I put up on this slide are, I think, I'd say two of my favorite recent holiday pictures, from the past few years. The bottom one was taken in Estonia, in southern Estonia, and the top one was taken in northern Finland, when we went on a holiday with my family, and we went there by ferry and by a night train. And that was definitely very enjoyable for me, because personally I hadn't ever taken a night train before. And it also proved to me once again that, you know, you didn't actually even need to fly to have a very memorable traveling experience. So I think that's also kind of a mindset change that we need to have. Yes, so I'll just leave the rest maybe here, but I hope you have had time to read through them. And I'll tell you about this company called Sisukott in Estonian, or Sisu Bags in English. And this kind of links to what Jiri said before about transitioning to a more circular economy. That's actually one of the ideas that motivated me and my friends to start this company. So yes, I think it was almost 3 years ago now that I met some girls in this entrepreneurship and leadership program called Future Heroes, where we all had, we were put in teams, and we had about 4 months to carry out any project we really wanted. And when we first met up with our team, we didn't know each other back then. We immediately realized that we all want to do something for the environment. And what we came up with was this idea, actually a very simple concept, that we wanted to start producing bags made out of fabric that you can use to go shopping and buy whatever fruit, vegetables, bread, etc. And you don't have to take a new paper bag or a new plastic bag. So that was the idea. What's I think important for the customer is that the bags are lightweight, mostly they weigh under 20 grams, so it doesn't really affect the price of what you buy. Then they're very versatile. You can use them for buying all sorts of different food, but also solid soap, for buying screws even, and so on, for when you go traveling and want to pack your items. That's like, you can use them for all that and even more purposes. And then they're very easily machine washed. Well, people often think that using cloth bags, that you then have to wash them a lot and it brings all sorts of hassle, but that's not actually true. But then what was important for us from the start, besides those qualities, is that how do we produce the bags? What's the whole process like? And from the start, we decided to use upcycled materials. So we get them from a secondhand shop after they have tried to sell the textiles and no one has wanted to buy them. That's when we step in, take the textiles and turn them into bags, so they get at least one more lifetime before they're sent to landfill. Then, when we started the company, we were thinking that it was obvious that we as a team couldn't sew all the bags fast enough, and we weren't skilled enough. But then we contacted some organizations that employ people with disabilities in Estonia, and they were very happy to sew the bags for us. So when you buy those bags, you also give a job opportunity to people with disabilities. So that's like one of the social parts that we try to do. And then obviously they're made locally. We get the materials from Estonia, we produce the bags in Estonia, and also most of our customers are here. So the transport impact is minimal. And even after the program ended, we still continue to run the company. It's still going there. We have an online shop that you can see the address below. And that's like this little practical part that I'm trying to do with my friends and colleagues to reduce plastic pollution a little. But obviously plastic pollution is not the only environmental issue out there. So now I'd also like to tell you about the Fridays for Future Estonia. I think most of you probably know at least something about the Fridays for Future movement. but I'll just give you a quick overview anyway, that it was started in summer 2018 when this Swedish schoolgirl went on strike in front of the Swedish parliament to demand climate action from politicians. The movement, I'd say, started in Estonia in spring 2019, and that's when I joined it. The left-hand image is from the second climate strike in Estonia. Most people consider it to be the first one because it's not that well known that just a week before that strike happened, we also organized a little climate strike with just the three of us there. But this one is the biggest climate strike in Estonia that has ever happened so far. And all over Estonia, I'd say about 1,500 people attended it to demand climate action from politicians, and actually also to raise awareness about the climate crisis, that it's not just a climate change anymore, but we can actually and should actually talk about it being a crisis. But besides just organizing climate strikes, that I think the movement is most famous for, we actually do a lot of different activities, because striking only will probably not us get to our goals, will not stop global warming. So we've met with politicians, for example, with the Prime Minister of Estonia, Jiri Ratas. We've met with the President and also some more local politicians to try to get them to take action against climate change. Then we have also given a number of guest lectures in schools, and we still continue to do them just to get children to know about the climate change in the first place, because it turns out that although climate change is somewhat taught at school, after children leave school, they still don't realize it's a problem. And I'd also bring out that we, as a movement, went to court against Narva-Jõesuu, local government, town government, in an attempt to stop the construction of a new shale oil plant. So that was in spring, and the process is still ongoing. Probably it will go on for at least another year, if not more. And personally, how I joined the movement is that before I actually joined it, I had thought about joining it for, I'd say, a couple of months at least. I'd read articles, I'd seen my friends abroad go to climate strikes, and I really thought that that's the right thing to do, because awareness of climate change is quite low in Estonia, and we have loads of problems with that. But I personally didn't really dare to be the very first one to organize a strike. So I met Kristin Siil, and she was already organizing this strike, so I was just happy to join them. And to conclude, I would just offer some questions that need answers, or problems that need solutions, because as it is a preparation event for this hackathon, then I thought maybe some of you will come up with at least a partial solution to some of these problems. And actually, how the idea of sisu bags, or part of it, how it was formed, is that I keep this very long-term to-do list somewhere on my phone or in a notebook, where I write down ideas for what should be different in the world. Like, some are quite specific, some are very large scale, and this to-do list is literally years long. But sometimes then the moment comes, and I've thought about this idea, and then I can make it reality. So maybe some of you will get inspiration from any of these ideas too, from raising awareness of the environmental and ecological crisis to more specific things like offering vegan meals or vegetarian meals at school. So yes, that's, I think, the end of it. And I'll just, for the very end, I'll put this quote by Greta Thunberg here, who said in one of her speeches that I want to act as you would in a crisis. I wanted to act as if our house is on fire, because it is. And I think there's not much to add to it. Thank you.
Wow, I'm a little bit speechless. I think you are forwarding a very huge topic in as like simple words, but the words are kind of like powerful. So I'm kind of speechless. But it's great that when somebody wants to do a business or wants to do something, but they don't have idea, so we can send them to you and you can just look at your list and okay, that one. And it would be helpful. Okay, now it's your time, audience, to ask questions from Kertu and Jiri. And until you are warming up, I have questions, quite many, and I will start with Jiri. Like, I have the feeling that when you are in this cellar bus and repair cellar and repair bus, that you have the mindset that everything is fixable and that we can fix everything. But you also mentioned that actually we need to look at this systemically, like the whole circular economy. So what is your strategy, or what have you done to actually reach the source of the problem, like the productions, like how to change their designs?
I think we haven't really took this as our personal mission. I think the general approach we have taken is to be sort of bottom up organized. So we do it as citizens, or as like basically as an NGO, and to basically live the example, like providing the example how things should be done, and also like documenting it, which we do through YouTube and through social media. But we haven't taken this role of ambassadors of like, you know, going to the companies and having some kind of like negotiations. I think again, it's what I mentioned in the beginning, and that's why it's such a tricky problem, because it's all connected to this idea that, and it's sort of almost like a religious belief that the only way forward, the only way to provide well-being to all the planet is via economical growth. I mean, I'm very sympathetic with this understanding of most of the global governments that this is how it is, because it has done a lot of good. But as we've been talking now, and Kertu was mentioning as well, it's how to say, it's propelling this climate crisis, the never ending, or the belief that economic growth is the only way forward. And man, to solve this, I don't know, like some I've planned like a whole series on this, like a YouTube series. I'm actually waiting just for funding. If I'm not gonna get funding, I'm gonna do it anyway, but now I'm a bit waiting and doing research. But yeah, now I just slipped to talking. I'm sorry, I didn't answer a question. Yes, we don't do it.
So you're both focusing on the mindset, changing the actions of the people. But when we assume that people are lazy, and not to say that they're lazy, but actually we are comfortable. Comfortable, yes. So when we go to the shop, we don't want to think that, oh, I need to have all these right bags and right products, but we want to go there, and whatever we take, it's already sustainable. And it's also like when we go to buy like new computer or whatever you said, whatever we pick, it's already sustainable. It's already designed this way. Could this world be possible?
Well, I don't know, man, because it's again, as I said, it's a vicious circle, right? I mean, and it's again, as long as we are dependent on the never-ending economical growth, then we never cannot reach this perfect circular economy like a model. Because if any businessman with the right mind wouldn't design upgradable, recyclable, fixable computer, because then, well, you're gonna end up with a computer for 20 next years. You just always just upgrade the processor, and that's kind of it now. And well, depends what you do, what kind of work you do, but maybe computer is another good example. Anyways, but so as long as this is in place, you cannot really do much about it. It's one big problem, and second big problem is the nature of human desire itself, right? I mean, it's just so good, as I was mentioning, it's just so good. Like new phone, it's just so cool. Like, I mean, you have the box, you open it, it's just like bam, look at you, it's just like shiny. It's right. And what to do, how to solve this? This is I'm afraid, and as long as the whole humanity is completely illuminated and like then I don't know how this is gonna happen. That
we need to start believing that the house is on fire, and then we're gonna change. I think Kertu wants to also add.
I think, well, I've thought about it a lot, and I see kind of like those two sides to it. That there are people who I've seen demand this so-called like systemic change. Well, of course, people mean different things with it, but I think when one way to think about it is that we need just like better regulation. Just for example, that we don't there are no things that basically break really soon that you can buy in the shop. They just don't exist there, or there are no unsustainably produced foods in the shop, etc. But to have some kind of like such regulation, at least in democratic countries, we need people to demand this from the politicians, or at least agree with it when the politicians propose it. Another question is, do we agree with it? Or can the majority agree with it? And now, unfortunately, I don't think people actually do agree with it, although we should, and we should talk to our friends and families about why we should. But until we don't really, agree to have like changes made to our lifestyles, then there's like, it probably won't be solved. But yeah, I think that also comes down to the fact that we can't leave everything up to these individuals. Like, you have to remember to take your reusable bags, or you have to ride your bicycle to avoid using your car, but we won't provide you with any comfortable bicycle lanes and safe ones and so on. So obviously that's not going to work either, because when you make those sustainable choices really inaccessible, then most people can't access it. That's what the word means. And so that's not going to happen then. So yeah, I think we need it from both sides. We need individuals to demand change from politicians and show that they're ready for it with their own behavior. And then we need politicians to meet, and also actually businesses to meet those demands. And yes, in the end, that will change, I think, also this economic model one way or the other that we are currently in.
Yeah, it's just gonna take time, and it's like right. I mean, this is how it is. It has to be tackled because it's such a complex problem. So it has to be tackled from each side. So for instance, for us, it's this bottom-up approach, and then you can do it on the political level, and then you can do it on the business level. But it's just, for instance, with these businesses, and like I'm now gonna be like, these evil corporations. It's just and governments that are just such a huge structures and are just so damn slow. And even though the CEOs might be all like, all enlightened, and they know how bad it is, that the nature of human soul is so that they want all the time more, and that we should really skip to or like transition to a circular economy, but then they are also like, well, the system is still in place, and to rebuild it is gonna take time. And I don't know, hopefully we have this time. No, maybe not, then we're just gonna adapt and so it's actually, we'll see how we're gonna play it. But yeah,
I'd also think add the idea here that it's actually not my personal idea that I came up with, but I'll just reference again Greta Thunberg, who has said that she doesn't believe that people are evil, but people right now mostly live unsustainably and harm the nature because they don't know how bad the situation is. And I agree with it a lot. That recently, just some weeks ago, this year's what is it, environmental awareness study that was conducted in Estonia. It was published again. And it shows again that people who even consider themselves to be environmentally aware, they don't, they still get the facts wrong, or they don't realize how bad the crises are and so on. So if we don't even know that, oh, wow, this what we are doing is actually wrong and harmful to ourselves, then why, then obviously we have very little motivation to change. So I also believe a lot in educating people, but we have to do it fast because we don't have that much time.
Yeah, it's true. Like I'm like so glad about this movement in general of Fridays for Future, because like you could really like see, you wouldn't even have to do some kind of research. You could just basically see with plain eyes of like how is the general debate or the general conversation in the society of Estonia just started to take place so much more, like about climate crisis in this sense. Like people, let's say, I don't know, I came to Estonia 8 years ago, and in this way, if you would have started to speak about these topics, you would have been looked a funny way, or like you would have been immediately labeled as some sort of like almost extremist person, referring to this, that whatever, that the economic system is destroying the planet, whatever. Yes, but now it has changed, like really, like during a year and a half or something like that, it's changed like so much. And the conversation, I mean, the general public conversation, right? People are still maybe not as aware, but it's really changing. So this is really cool. And I think this is kind of it now. I mean, this nudging will take time, but it's this kind of quiet, yet not so quiet force. Like yeah. No.
We are getting a bit philosophical, but this is quite complex topic. And when I was looking at the list of Kertu's, like the actions that every person can make, then actually I think there was one very important thing missing, that this is our housing. Like I think even do we have a car or not, the bigger impact is how big is our house, because house is all the construction materials, all the electricity and heating and like everything so on. And I consider myself environmentally friendly person, and I know that owning a house is a huge damage for the environment, but still as a personal level, I have a dream to have a home. I don't want to be totally homeless. So here comes like the trick between this, like our personal needs and then what is the environmental impact. So it's not so black and white. It's very, very tricky.
But maybe add here, I can't remember the exact study now, but recently there was, I think, one study conducted that where they analyzed what is this like living standard that we can all have. So meaning all people, I think, right now in the world, or maybe even a slightly larger population. And basically what they found out is that if we live, let's say, I think it was something like the 1960s average level, average household in the US. So it was somewhere around there. So maybe you could even have like a smallish car and I think like 14 or 16 square meters per person of like this house floor surface, and so like it wasn't actually. It didn't say that we all need to go back to like stone caves and whatnot. That it was actually quite a decent standard that they came up with, but it just means that some of the things that we do now we have to change. But we also have to keep in mind that people live on very different standards. That the top 10%, I think in Europe it's like that the top 10% of the richest people produce more greenhouse gas emissions than the poorest 50%. So obviously we shouldn't tell the poorest 50% that you have to halve your environmental impact, because they are already living quite like on a quite tight budget. But instead we should tell the richest people to cut down their impact a lot, because they can do it and they will still have quite a decent standard of living. And then like those middle class people who should also try to cut down their impact. And that comes that actually comes to climate justice and environmental justice, which is crucial, absolutely inevitable to achieving any sort of like stable environment and climate, and having like decent living for everyone.
I think I have a I think I have an answer to Ani. Ani is asking here, do you think media can talk too much about green initiatives and sustainability and climate crisis? So finally it gets there that people do not even care anymore about the news on that topic, like it happened with Corona. How can we make environment topic interesting in the long term? I think I have a sort of an answer, I think, and I guess this is what we try to do. For instance, like one thing with the YouTube, it's just that, right, if you're gonna bombard people just with data and how everything is screwed and how California forests are again on fire and how I don't know how much blah 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 fish died, nobody cares and nobody will ever care. I mean, it's just like, right, it's just stuff, but especially when you're gonna just massage this in this manner, right? No, people just won't care. No, I mean, it's just so far. Anyways, some kind of Australian forest. Who cares? I mean, okay, little pandas or no koala, right? But it's about the narrative. Yes, I think it's really about how we. I mean, it's complex again. Like everything in this topic, like you need, right. Again, it's about the right narrative. You need to scare people a bit, but then needs to be the vision for like the better future. I think this should be rather. I mean, at least for me, this is how it works. Not just necessarily just scare people off with the possible horrible outcomes, but then also have the vision for, if we solve this, then well, we have pretty well functioning, or like much better functioning planet than before, right? If you imagine that we overcome all the climate, or like almost all the climate challenges, then we're gonna end up with such a solutions that will actually back up a really promising future. So we can, focus on things like, just food or art or making podcasts about monkeys, stuff like this. So we don't, I mean, if we figure how to make most of the energy carbon neutral, if we solve how to make almost anything locally with the local materials that lasts, how to make etc., how to set up the economical system without actually being like some kind of super communistic dystopia where everyone have kind of everything. But check a book, Donut Economy. Then I can use this use this term, so we stay within the realm of the donut. Basically, that we don't overuse, but we also provide enough for everyone. Like if we solve these, then this is really cool. And I think this I would really like to bring with also the content we are making to the conversation of the climate crisis. Like if we solve this, then it's very promising.
I think the question of media is super important, and well, I know that I'm in this question. I'm definitely not the only one to think so. That we've talked about it a lot, also, for example, in our movement. But the main problem I see right now with the media talking about the climate crisis is that they're not talking about the climate crisis. It's just it's quite obvious that, for example, when there were those huge fires in California, then I think on the national news.
I think I have lost Kertu. Yeah, I'm not the only one. I hope she will be back, but it's also time to wrap up. And I wanted to ask both from Jiri and Kertu to give the last motivational words for people coming to the Green Together Youth Ideation Day. That will be like one big hackathon. So Jiri, maybe you have something motivational to say to people who would like to do something, but they don't know how to start, or making a business seems so big step to take. Where to start? What's the first thing young people should do when they would like to start their own business or project.
Oh dear, that's a very heavy question. I guess I believe in this, like start with why. Like I guess dig out of yourself, like why you care. Like for instance, for us, this trigger was that we were really bothered by this nonsensicalness. It's just so ridiculous the way how the world, how it's set up. So this really bothered us. This was our why. I mean, why we do it. Like why do we propel ourselves forward? I guess yes. Start with this, because then when you have this very clear, then you can do well. Then you can think out the how and what, so yes, I guess this starts with why you do it in the first place. Yes.
Thank you, Jiri. We have some nice thoughts and cozy thank yous in the chat. Obviously, the people who are listening to the recording later cannot get part of this, but I think at the moment it's time to thank everybody. Thank Jiri and Kertu from being inspiring here, and also all the ones who joined us. Let's make one more time the reaction, or maybe we can unmute everybody and make a real applause, or we can still use just the reaction buttons. So thank you all.
Thank you.
And I hope we can see you all on 21st of November in the Ideation Day with Garage 48, Cleantech ForEst, and the Ministry of the Environment. Thank you all and have a nice evening.